Good morning. My name is Mary Blanton, and Diane Mellinger and I would like to welcome you on this damp 4th of July Sunday to our final video service for the North Chapel Society. Next Sunday, we hope that many of you will be joining us in the backyard of the church. We will miss those of you who live too far away to join us in person and are grateful that you have found us and enjoyed our services. Hopefully, you will remain connected to the North Chapel by watching the video of our reflection, which will be posted on YouTube each Sunday afternoon. You will find the link on the North Chapel website. Our minister, Leon Dunkley, will be giving the reflection today, titled, "I'm having to change my mind about a lot of things these days."
Piglet noticed that even though he had a very small heart, it could hold a rather large amount of gratitude. After the past 16 months, there is great gratitude for all that we managed to accomplish together, even though we were apart. Gratitude for a willingness to accept things that were different, the perseverance to keep on keeping on, and the ability to let go of what could no longer be. And now, abundant, almost giddy gratitude that we are moving back to in-person services next week. This is our 65th and final installment of our weekly North Chapel e-service. Oh, how time flies. Should you choose to binge watch from beginning to end, it would take you 39 hours and 56 minutes. Just a few hours shy of watching all of Downton Abbey's seasons, though I suspect Downton Abbey had a few more viewers.
But oh, the production costs. Keep your fingers crossed for beautiful weather for next Sunday's service. Our outdoor services will be shorter than the indoor ones. We will have recorded music and a longer time for sharing our joys and concerns. It will be very good to be together. As always, the choir is on vacation during the summer, and Diane, having worked overtime for the past 16 months, is taking a well-deserved break and will be back with us in September. Later this week, you will receive a letter from the Reopening Task Force detailing the guidelines for our outdoor services.
Mary and I agree that producing these e-services has given us a lasting appreciation for the beauty in our own backyards. We've been knee-deep in snow with no boots,
Had bugs biting us mid-shot,
laid belly down in fallen leaves,
had our camera in one hand, throwing milkweed with the other,
gotten up for the sunrises and out during thunderstorms,
stood in cow pastures and along roadsides,
tripped while walking backward,
had tripods knocked over by the wind,
and the dog
stood ankle-deep in marshes,
found the ticks later. But it was all worth the beautiful scenes of our spectacular countryside that we were able to share with you. We've been up and down roads in our towns that we've never ventured before, even though we've both lived here for decades. Though done with e-services, we will try to stop to appreciate what we are so lucky to have all around us during every season, year after year. Even the clouds will never look the same. And we hope that no matter where you are, you will stop to appreciate the beauty that is in and around and above us all.
Besides our July 11th service, there are several other opportunities for us to be together in person. The brown bag lunches will continue for the foreseeable future in the backyard. So join us at noon, bring your chair and a lunch every Wednesday. And if you're interested in helping in the permaculture garden, please come an hour earlier to weed or mulch.
Lastly, please come to the Community Celebration Picnic on Sunday, July 11th at 5. We are inviting community members to join us, so we're hoping for a big turnout from all North Chapel members and friends. Bring your own picnic, a blanket or chairs, and invite a friend, family member, or neighbor to come too, as we gather on our back lawn for a celebration the evening after our first in-person service in 16 months. The North Chapel will be serving ice cream sundaes and cones. In case of rain, this event will be held the following Sunday, July 18th.
Our July worship theme is courage, and I'd like to read an anonymous poem titled Courage. It takes courage to refrain from gossip when others delight in it, to stand up for the absent person who is being abused. It takes courage to live honestly within your means and not dishonestly on the means of others. It takes courage to be a real man or a true woman, to hold fast to your ideals when it causes you to be looked upon as strange and peculiar. It takes courage to be talked about and remain silent when a word would justify you in the eyes of others, but which you dare not speak because it would injure another. It takes courage to refuse to do something that is wrong, although everyone else may be doing it, with an attitude as carefree as a summer song. It takes courage to live according to your own convictions, to deny yourself what you cannot afford, to love your neighbor as yourself.
On this July 4th, the birthday of our country, please join us in singing America the Beautiful with some of the more spectacular video clips from the past 65 weeks.
Hello, my name is Laura Foley. I'm speaking to you today from the shaded woods of Pomfret, Vermont. Today is the 46th Poetry Moment broadcast. We started in mid-August last year. I wanted to thank Diane Mellinger for inviting me to do this, and all of you listeners for attending. Writers need readers or listeners. The poem I'd like to read you is made up of 9 separate small poems. It's called 9 Ways of Looking at Light. 1. We moved the bed so the head faces north, a wisdom we read from India. We dislodged a ghost, her husband, who on these sheets many years ago expired. We altered the angle of our repose and sleep all night, at peace entwined. We wake to morning hills, trees, a great expanse, a gentle dappled light, new to us. 2. The patient avoids the hospital window's view, turning from snow's glare and stripped winter trees, focusing on photos of dogs, children, his hunting awards taped to the wall, all invoking home, where he'd prefer to be. This large man with his bright white beard, who doesn't read much, doesn't pray, except now, with me, both of us shy, until his eyes tear and his body shines from inside. 3. No dappling leaves, but enough snow on near branches now to illuminate our window, winter light grown greater with snow's reflection. 4. We begin it with experiment, hurling boiling water to the frozen air, watching it glitter like glass confetti crackling in the new year, an answered wish in every shining shard. 5. Cold wind whips snow, so it swirls around our tallest pine, a halo of light circling a frigid angel or ghost from my or someone else's past, seeking company, or just floating in the crisp winter air for the wonder of it. 6. Not brown, not rust, but inexplicably white as bones, these remnants dry as dust recall life, crackling as wind shivers them in barren early spring. Not one bud yet gracing it, white leaves clung through snow and ice to shine and tremble in this Sunday light. 7. The dog shivers, wet from a late spring swim, whimpers as a wind pulls light from the pond, and we sit in shadows by the water she knows just last summer shone gold. 8. This sip of coffee over so quickly, this guiding lighthouse in the mistless harbor, moments before the season changes, this slip of wind along the bay, a sweater saving me from chill, this precious slant of summer sun, clouds arriving to veil the light, a gentle voice of waves on stone, it's this, it's this. It's this. 9. I walk this foggy dawn to see the seals where they sleep beneath the scrim rain makes of rising light, to hear the music of their steady breath, a holy time before the changing of the tide. Luca. Come here. Chloe.
Good morning and good Sunday. I hope that this new day finds you well. My name is Leon Dunkley, and I am honored to serve here as minister at North Universalist Chapel Society, or North Chapel, in Woodstock, Vermont. Today is Independence Day. Today is Sunday, the 4th of July. And the title of this morning's reflection is, I'm having to change my mind about a lot of things these days. To all souls, I say good morning. It is good to be together. It's not important to search for that which simply cannot be found. It is important to search, and to search without ever ceasing, for that which is rarest, for that which is singular, and for that which is most precious in all the world. I'm having to change my mind about a lot of things these days, so I'm glad that I'm learning to stretch and that I'm learning to become flexible. I am a rescuer by family training. That is the role that I've played for many years, for so many years, in fact, that my family can't remember it being otherwise. I can't remember it being otherwise, but I know it wasn't always this way. Rescuing for me is self-protective. I can deal with a crisis better if I dive right in headlong. Sometimes I'm helpful, other times, though, I'm just busying myself in a helpful way. Either way, I need time when the crisis is over to rest up and to rejuvenate myself. It's a process, and one that I am not always fully aware of in the moment. Being a rescuer is really awesome sometimes. Half of the time, when I do it healthily, it's easy and it feeds me, actually. I'm glad to offer whatever energy I might have. The process enriches me. I benefit. I grow from the giving, and I learn more about myself, and I learn more about others. That's when I do it well. When I do it poorly, being a rescuer utterly exhausts me, and I end up feeling heavy and resentful. I feel tired and irritable, and it has nothing to do with the situation in which I find myself. And it's not like when I'm helping people that I know and love, I'm all light and happy, and when I'm helping people who I don't know or maybe don't even like, that I'm heavy and mean. It's not like that. Life is not that simple. My life is not that simple. Sometimes, most of the time, if I'm honest with myself, it's when I'm with the people that I love that I become the most irritable. It makes sense somehow that this would be the case. It's also true that when I'm irritable and not perfectly helpful about how I'm doing things, I am in the process of learning something. I would love to think that that is broadly true. I would love to think that it's universally true, but it probably isn't. I think it's only universally possible, and that's good enough. Because it gives me a choice. I can either choose to grow, or I can choose to stay right where I am, or even retreat a little bit. Heavy, mean, irritable, unhealthy, and stuck in all of that. There's an old saying that I learned from a dear colleague in Boston years ago. She would always say, change is inevitable. Growth is optional. I like pithy sayings like that. They don't always rise to the level of theology for me, but they're fun to preach about. One such pithy saying is 15 minutes of fame. Are you familiar with that expression? I looked it up online and I found out more about its history, and I learned that it's a well-known quotation from Andy Warhol, the artist, and that it traces back to 1968. But that it changed over time. So now it's different. The original line was this. Warhol said, in the future, everybody in the world will be famous for 15 minutes. The quotation is derived from an earlier expression, centuries old actually, when the same concept revealed itself in England, in English cultural life. It dates back to the Elizabethan era, actually. And they used a phrase, the 9 days wonder to convey a similar idea. But it seems like this old idea has depreciated somewhat over time. 400 years ago, before Warhol, we spoke of the 9 Days of Wonder in 1968. Warhol talked about the 15 minutes of fame. Perhaps a few hundred years from now, we'll talk about the 28 seconds of quasi-disinterest. If the current trend holds, we'll have gone from wonder to fame to low-level curiosity over the better part of a millennium, unless we change our minds about all of that. And the duration changes as well. We went from 9 days to 15 minutes to 28 seconds, 29 seconds, 28 seconds. Unless, of course, we decide to change our minds. It would be a strange collective choice, wouldn't it? To choose depreciation actively or passively. I mean, it's not a choice that I would like to make. I would like to think that it would be better for us to choose otherwise, to go in the opposite direction, to become more and more filled up with wonder and less with disinterest or vanity. 15 minutes of fame. I love this expression, actually, although I think we tend to use it somewhat loosely. In fact, there's a film called The Insider, Al Pacino, Russell Crowe, Christopher Plummer, and Philip Baker Hall. They all star in it. And in this film, there's this scene where these men are arguing about the value of telling the truth about big tobacco, about nicotine and its addictive qualities, and about its health hazards and its connection to lung cancer and so on. Philip Baker Hall plays a television executive named Don Hewitt, who is the television executive for a show called 60 Minutes. Hewitt is enraged because the New York Times had recently published an explosive story about a private conversation that took place behind closed doors at CBS. So there was a leak. Al Pacino was that leak. He had leaked the story to the New York Times. He plays a character named Lowell Bergman, and he worked under Hewitt. And Bergman said quite passionately, Big Tobacco tried to smear our whistleblower, and you bought it, Don. The Wall Street Journal, not exactly the bastion of anti-capitalist sentiment, they refuted Big Tobacco's smear campaign as the lowest form of character assassination. And even now, with every word of what our whistleblower had said is now printed, with the cat totally out of the bag, you're still standing here debating. What else do you need? End quote. What else does someone need to go after Big Tobacco? Don Hewitt was afraid of those powerful men. He was afraid of the rich and powerful, understandably. They were a force to be reckoned with. They were totally united, indivisible. I mean, do you remember when the 7 CEOs of Big Tobacco stood before the committee on the floor of Congress and testified collectively and individually that they did not believe that nicotine was addictive? Not in 1950, but in 1994, when this case was breaking. Of course, Don Hewitt was afraid, but we have to find courage in times like these. This is what courage is built for. Christopher Plummer played a character named Mike Wallace, the well-known CBS news anchor. He was the one who called Don out. He said, Don, you messed up. And this criticism took him by surprise. Off stride, Don Hewitt pushed back and said, don't worry, Mike. Stick with me like always, and we'll be okay. These things have a half-life of 15 minutes. And Mike Wallace interrupts him, saying, no, Don, that's fame. Fame has a half-life of 15 minutes. Infamy lasts much longer. Now, knowing the difference between the choices that lead us to fame and the choices that lead us to infamy can be surprisingly difficult in the moment. It's easy and it's obvious in retrospect, but it can be challenging at the time because you might have to change your mind about a lot of things. You might have to stretch and be flexible. That's hard for us sometimes. It's rare. It's not important to search for that which simply cannot be found. It is important to search, and to search without ever ceasing, for that which is rarest in all the world, for that which is singular and most precious. We search for the beautiful, for that quality of conscious attention that invites us nearer to God or to the spirit of life. We search for that quality of wakefulness that appears to us as heaven on earth. There is an interesting poem about heaven. Not the untouchable heaven, or the only if you're good enough to go there heaven, but the heaven that can be right here and now. A poet writes, "What are you waiting for? Believe in me. Isn't it love in this life that you need? Now you can offer your soul on an altar of sacrifice, but give your heart to me. Let's bring heaven down here. Let's bring heaven on down. I don't want to wait for the angels. Let's bring heaven down here." Would you like to hear a little story about heaven? There was a semi-pro golf tournament that took place in the early autumn. It took place on the beautiful grounds, so it attracted a high level of talent, even though the prize was only $500, modest by industry standards. On the day of the tournament, something rather magical happened. The dark horse, the golfer who was unlikely to win, ended up breaking all predictions. Everything fell in his favor, and he won that day. The player who was ranked 12th among the 15 who were playing ended up being victorious, and the media were astounded. And the 12th seed player was instantaneously surrounded by area news organizations and microphones and flashing cameras. There was a whirlwind of activity. Very quickly, it was over, and the frenzied media types delivered the same interviewing energies to the higher-ranked celebrities who had been favored for the victory. The actual winner was not upset by the lack of attention, but was actually tickled that they all moved on so soon. Their departure freed him up to head back home and to his family, and on his way to the car, he was approached by a woman who seemed terribly distraught. She said, forgive me for my intrusion. I don't mean to bother you." She said, "May I speak with you for just a moment?" "Of course," the victorious golfer said. What's troubling you? I can see that you're very upset." And the woman said, "It's my daughter. She's in the hospital, and I knew I couldn't afford it, but I had to find a way to stop the seizures. They're not sure what's wrong with her, so they're running a second series of tests. My husband walked out on me, and I've been alone for a while on my own. I've handled most things okay, but until this moment, until now, I've run out of money, and I was barely able to pay the doctors for the first round of tests. I cannot afford the second, even though I told them that I could. And then the treatment. I can't even begin to tell you about how much the treatment will cost." And the man laughed gently to himself, and he asked, "What is your name, my dear friend?" And she said, "Evelyn. My name is Evelyn Mason Henry." And she offered her hand in greeting. She said, "My name is still hyphenated. I'm not sure what's going to happen in the future after the divorce comes through. Things are really difficult for me." And the newly victorious semi-golf pro, the dark horse that was unfavored to win, wrote these words: "Pay to the order of Evelyn Mason Henry." And he wrote this on the back of his $500 prize, the check that he had just received from winning at the golf tournament. He got into his car and he left her speechless in the parking lot, slack-jawed and amazed. He drove off unaware that one of the media types was waving desperately behind him, trying to flag him down. A few months later, the same golfer entered into another semi-pro tournament. He loved to play, and he was similarly ranked near the bottom third of all of the competitors. and he wondered if his luck would be the same this time. And before the competition began, however, he was approached by someone in the media, a sports journalist who covered all of the tournaments that were like this one. And he said hello to the dark horse golfer. He said, "Might I have a minute of your time? You see, I've been covering events like this for the past few years. It's been my beat, if you know what I mean. And the woman who approached you last time, she's a major swindler. I have seen her here at similar events all across this region. She looks for the winners, and then she dumps out one of her super sad tales of woe and asks them for help. I'm sure she must have done the same to you. I should have seen it coming. I thought to warn you, but I was too late. I was the one who was running behind you, trying to flag you down. I tried to chase you down in the parking lot, but I wasn't fast enough. She descended upon you and had her way before I could alert you about how things are with her." "Oh my God," said the golfer. "I can't believe it. Do you mean to tell me that there's no baby in the hospital? Do you mean to tell me that there is no child at risk from a life-threatening seizure?" And the journalist said, "I'm afraid not. She's taken you for a ride." And the golfer said, "That news, my friend, that news is the best news that I've heard all day." It's not important to search for that which simply cannot be found. It is important to search, and to search without ever ceasing for that which is rarest, for that which is singular and most precious and most beautiful in all the world. What are you waiting for? Believe in me. Isn't it love in this life that you need? You can offer your soul on an altar of sacrifice, but give your heart to me. Let's bring heaven down here. Let's bring heaven on down. I don't want to wait for the angels. It's so important to see life with our own eyes, to make decisions about that which is truly within our control, and to let go of that which cannot possibly control. I cannot control the behaviors of other people. I can be upset about them. I can be enraged by them. I can laugh about them. I can be fulfilled and strengthened by them, but I can't control them. The thing that I can control is how I react to the world around me. That's the way in which I access that part of heaven that is available to me here and now. Maybe that's how we can access that part of heaven that is here and with us. Maybe by letting go of that which we cannot change. And maybe by actively engaging with that which we can change, we will slowly learn to grow. But it will mean that we'll have to change. It may mean that we may have to change our mind about a lot of things these days, because these are some very strange and some very difficult days. And we have to ask ourselves, what does Independence Day, what does the 4th of July mean in a time like this? And as we celebrate the 4th of July for the first time since the January insurrection, it's wise to raise a question. What does freedom mean in these days? Because the definition of freedom keeps changing. Does it mean freedom from tyranny like it did for the Tea Party in Boston in 1773? Does freedom mean freedom from fear like it did for FDR after the crash of 1929? Does it mean freedom from fraud, as Alan Weisselberg, the chief financial officer for the Trump Organization, surrendered to New York authorities after being indicted by the grand jury? What definition of freedom helps us to live life most beautifully? As change is inevitable and growth is optional, may we all be flexible enough to choose not the paths that lead to sorrow and to suffering, but the paths that lead to greater peace and happiness for all. May it be so. Blessed be and amen.
On the ground where the turtles and leopards and snakes live in the shelter beyond the soaring lakes. The ground is so soft and the air is so clear. With 300